As high performers, everybody listening to this podcast, I know you're into self-development, you're looking for strategies for your teams, for your businesses. Stress does weird things on our bodies, and burnout is one of those byproducts of a lot of stress and not enough balance. Some really hardcore hours, like 7 p.m., phones down, computers closed, we're not working, you need your rest. It's important. People will do as you do, not as you say. Hey everyone, welcome to the episode today. Have you ever felt like your business or your team or your organization is running a marathon at a sprinter's pace? Like they're just trucking. And what occurs when that happens? They may make it to the finish line, but at the finish line, it's a collapse. And that collapse in the business world is coined burnout. And as leaders, sometimes we ask ourselves, it can strike really quickly in organizations. I've seen people, high performers, really good employees that all of a sudden start just drop. And I'm not talking about physically dropping, but engagement begins to drop. Frustration begins to increase and they begin to pull away. We even see like very small things. And we're going to talk about the subtle versus the obvious signs of burnout. But if you are a business owner, if you're a leader out there and you have a team that's running 100 miles an hour, or you're an employee that's running 100 miles an hour, this episode is going to speak to you. We can only sustain that pace for so long. And as high performers, everybody listening to this podcast, I know you're into self-development, you're looking for strategies for your teams, for your businesses. We all want our businesses to grow. We all want our teams to develop. And when we begin to push them to achieve goals, to raise the bar, to hit that next metric, it can create an environment that only can be sustained for so long. So we're going to talk about two things in this podcast, in this particular episode. One, recognizing those signs. And we know the obvious ones, but we're going to discuss the subtle ones. And then the second part is we're going to talk about some strategies to continue to push your team to perform at their very best, but also have clear boundaries around balance. So let's get into the episode. The first one, and as I was thinking this morning, as I always do in these podcasts, and I'm journaling here, get out your books because, again, this is practical strategies. These strategies you can apply the minute you finish listening to this episode. They're from my 20 plus years experience working with teams, working with leaders, and spotting burnout can even be one of those things that great leaders, it passes them by. And then when it hits, and we have somebody in the organization and we begin to blame ourselves. We begin to ask ourselves, why didn't I see the signs earlier? Why didn't I see the signs, period? And that's really what this piece is. As leaders sometimes, and this is going to be hard for some of us out there, we have to go slow to go far. And what that means is, I got a perfect story here. We program schedules throughout the year in sprints. And that's going to be one of the applications. And when we do those sprints, I like a good 6 to 7 week, sprint. We work in 90-day chunks. So that 90 days is going to give us roughly 3 months. So about 12 weeks. Okay, so 12 weeks. So if you work in a 6 to 8 week sprint, you're going to have some time in there between sprints to really just balance. I'm not talking about slow down, because as business owners, as leaders, we can never slow down and take our foot off the pedal that much. But we also, it's like going through a school zone. You're still continuing, right? Or the neighborhood. You're still moving. You're just more slow, more cautious, more aware of the team and the organizations. And that's what spotting burnout really is. When we talk about the subtle signs, things that even, in my early days of leadership, I was the force multiplier in a lot of cases when it came to burnout, because I was working long hours. I was showing up to, first in, last out type mentality. Nobody was going to outwork me. And I thought I was doing a healthy service to the organization, to the team, make everybody rise up. But what I was actually doing was I was modeling poor behavior. I was modeling burnout burnout behavior. And the things that began to show up was, frequent illness. I found myself, and I was healthy, I was eating, but the stress of a constant attack on our nervous systems and it can be even, and I'm not talking about like financial stress or health stress, but there is an equal and healthy amount of stress that we expose ourselves to as leaders, as business owners, as entrepreneurs, because we're always trying to provide what's the next step, trying to put together that puzzle without a picture, all of those things that we talk about. And that stress can begin to deteriorate on our health. And so we see things like illness pop up. We start seeing people, and I've observed this in organizations, where they'll take sick leave more often. And maybe it's not even the physical part of being sick. It's the mental part, the fatigue. Again, stress does weird things on our bodies. And burnout is one of those byproducts of a lot of stress and not enough balance in our lives. Life is about balance. And sometimes you'll hear people say, what is the magic ratio, John? Do I work 10-hour days and then rest 4, or I work 3 on and 4 off? There is no simple answer to this equation. Every organization, every person, even industries are different. A lot of times it's dictated by when our customers need us as business owners. And then it goes into certain things like, well, where, are people located? Are we across, is it a global organization? Are we across multiple time zones? There's a lot of things that go into just a natural circadian rhythm that if we ramp up too much, that's where we also begin to see signs of burnout. So what are some applications? What are those things that you can look out for, that you can do as a high performer or as a business owner or a leader for your team? The first one, and this one I probably started about 12 months ago, and we do just 2-minute energy updates. And I do this during our check-ins, our weekly check-ins, but if I notice somebody that is disengaged more than usual, I'll just ping them online, ask them, how's the energy today? How you feeling? And then I wait and I sit back. That's our opportunity to get feedback. So ask the question and then sit back. And the first couple times may feel a little awkward. It will get to be more normal for you and also for the person that you're asking. And now they even ask me. Like, the tables have turned a little bit, and I'll walk in, I'll be talking to somebody and they'll say, hey, John, energy status. How's your energy going? And that's my cue to be like, yeah, something is off. So this one, spotting burnout, that's the first thing that you have to do. We're going to talk about how to build resilience and, how to cultivate support, but it starts with spotting burnout in those little subtle ways. So the first thing, energy updates, and then burnout checklists. And this was something that came out of just the culture. We're a safety culture. I work with organizations that are in safety a lot, and they're checklist cultures. So what did we do? We came up with a burnout checklist. And we use it. It's on a shared site. You go out there and I'll ask people, just go check it. If you check more than in our checklist, it's 4 boxes. If you check 4 or more boxes, then there's a potential that there is some burnout there. It's really served us well. And I will be sure to create or share our burnout checklist with you all down in the comments. Or I'll even put it on the website in our resource section, thejohnespinosa.com. So you can go check that out because it's handy for your organization. So that's really the first strategy in the episode that we're going to talk about. And it starts there, spotting burnout. So what's the second thing that you can do? Well, when we talk about building resilience, and we discuss this especially with Agile teams, because with Agile teams, there's always constant movement. It feels like things are in a constant state of change or flux, or people are moving. Maybe they're shifting roles within the organization. Maybe we're surging and then we're downsizing. So agile teams, and you have to really have an agile team, especially in this day and age, because changes just come at us as leaders and as business owners so fast that we need our teams to adapt. And you do this through retaining your top talent and then hiring your top talent. So that is something that we preach, that we coach on here in Leaders Leading Leaders. It's important to have that capability to build resilience with those teams. Try it on. I want to take a quick break from the episode today to talk about a couple things. The first thing, less than 40% of our listeners are subscribed to our channel. You would be doing me a huge favor if you click on that subscribe button. It helps us grow our Go Be Great community and get this podcast out to as many people as we possibly can. The second thing, are you a small business owner that is drowning in the day-to-day operations? You're delegating tasks and you're still doing all the work. You're experiencing a high turnover. Maybe you don't have the systems and processes in place that you need to run a successful business. I invite you to go over to thejohnespinosa.com, fill out the form to see if you're the right fit. Now back to the episode. So a couple things here that I have written down. And I was thinking back to an organization that I helped in. They were trying to launch, it was an IT tool. And this IT tool had to get out before the workforce reorg. And there was a 90-day sprint. It was a long sprint. That's a 12-week, that's a long time to push. And they were going at such a rapid pace that what I helped them do was create some boundaries. Some boundaries around work time, some boundaries around how often individuals were engaged in the project, because not everybody needed to be engaged all throughout the project. And what that did was it prevented exhaustion. Because if you continue, as we mentioned in the intro, you're running a marathon at a sprinter's pace, it will lead to exhaustion. So boundaries, we discuss boundaries. This is our theme this year or this season for these podcasts. How important they are, and they're specifically important when you are moving at a very rapid pace. The other thing that I have written down is structure your team's flexibility. What does that look like? There's sub-teams. So in our organization, we have sub-teams that touch projects at certain points in time throughout the project lifecycle. And you may see that in organizations that show up in workflow analysis. So you break down a workflow, and there are certain inputs and outputs. There are certain times that people, have their hands on the project or on the material or whatever that looks like in your particular industry. But what that does is that allows us to begin to group like tasks and then identify points where I call them check-ins, where we can iterate, we can change the project or the product, whatever it is, through the entire project life cycle. And then we stop and we say, okay, this is our health check. How's the project going? Are there any challenges? Do you need any support? What does that look like? And the teams come together and each one of them will report out. No, I'm good. Yeah, we're having a little trouble, getting some feedback from maybe our subject matter experts or the field or our customers. Whatever that looks like, that's an opportunity for us to be flexible. So then it may have to go back through a certain process in order for it to continue on. But instead of being halfway through the project, we're identifying that in little sprints. So it allows the team to be flexible. And it also prevents us from fatigue. So here again, it's kind of like, back to our running analogy that we started out with, it's run walking. That's exactly when I think of building resilience for agile teams. It's run walking. We run for a certain amount of time and then we walk for a certain amount of time. That technique, ultra marathons use it. 100 miles plus. Run walking is a proven technique. And why? Because we expend energy and then we don't slow all the way down. As I mentioned earlier, we go through that school zone. We're very cautious. We're walking and then there goes the timer. Now we're back to running. It allows the team to just really sustain a solid pace. Again, we're in it for the long haul, especially with this team that I worked with in a 12-week sprint. They needed to run walk. So what are some other applications? Breathers. I love scheduling breathers. This is like the first aid stations or your water stations. We're just going to continue on with our run analogies because it's working for this particular example here, or these strategies. But breathers. So during the water break, during your water stops, you may stop and stretch. You may stop and actually drink your water, or maybe you're a little behind schedule, so you're going to walk through the run stop. But those breathers, whatever they look like, They're programmed in. They're at certain stops. They're at certain miles, maybe 1 mile, 2 mile sprints in a marathon. And those are your opportunities for breathers. Very important to program into an organization. So John, what does a breather look like in an organization? Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is 3 days of, I mentioned earlier, just those timeouts where we do check-ins, we bring everybody in, we see how things are going. Those are breathers. It allows everybody to kind of decompress, get out their frustration. If there's frustration in the project, get out any challenges. We brainstorm those challenges. Those are breathers, because when it builds and builds and builds, that's when it begins to erupt. And that's where we see most times that burnout occur. And then establish boundaries around working hours. This is something that we can, again, as leaders, we can push. We push people quite a bit. And if people feel like they can't get all the work that we're expecting them to do in a normal, business day, whatever your business day looks like, they begin to extend hours. They do it on the front end, they do it on the back end, and pretty soon we're working 10, 12, 14-hour shifts without any breathers, and it just it's a recipe for burnout. So establish some really hardcore hours, like 7 p.m., phones down, computers closed. We're not working. You need your rest. It's important. No matter, even sometimes after a certain time, no matter if you're working or not, you're not being productive. And those are times that you need to identify and just cut off times. So an example there, application on how to build resilience. The second one, how do we cultivate the supportive culture that we want in our high-performing agile teams so that way they don't burn out? Supportive environments are essential. And one thing that I have learned is a supportive environment where people feel you truly care about them. And this isn't fluff. You will see this in very high-performing organizations. Work hard and you play hard. And that is a mentality that I've took with me throughout my professional career, and something that, again, I coach on. And I'm not talking about, when I say play hard, it's not go party. That's not what I mean. Play hard means go take a day, do an offsite to where you do some type of bonding, team building, connecting, relationship building, whatever buzzword that you want to use. In the end, it's people management. We need people in order to do the things that we want to do in our businesses. And if we stress those people out and we burn them out and we work them till the max, we're not going to be left with anybody but ourselves. And I don't care how much of a high performer you are as a business owner or a leader, there's not too many teams of one that are very successful businesses. So it's important to be supportive. It's important for us to recognize wins frequently. This is another one of those breather examples. Recognize those wins, give them 30 minutes or 40, an hour off early even sometimes is a great way for people just to decompress. And then the leader must balance this. The leader must model the balance and the vulnerability that you have to have, and the courage to know when enough is enough. And for this, I can't really even put into words how important it is for you all as leaders and as business owners to model what you expect. Not for it to be just words. It needs to be modeled. People will do as you do, not as you say. And we see this time and time again through a lot of examples. They just expect different things than words. They want to see it. People want to understand through this behavioral observation, through observing you. That's what they're going to do. So it's very important that we model that balance and that vulnerability. In some applications here that really go to creating and cultivating this supportive environment, peer recognition. I think it's one thing for a business owner or a manager or a boss or, a leader to say, hey, thank you, job well done, I appreciate everything. It's another thing for peers to do it. It's another level of appreciation. And when you see that or you hear about that occurring in the organization, it brings a smile to my face. That's when you know that the organization is healthy. And it starts with you really modeling that to your peers. And your peers could be other departments. It could be external stakeholder companies, or maybe companies that manufacture parts that you put into, your end products. Whatever that looks like, recognize people for hard work. And that gratitude is an attitude. And it's an attitude because attitudes are contagious. And when the attitude of your company, of your team is recognition, it's going to stick. I promise. And it'll begin, because it's almost like looking at it from the exact opposite way. When you have a bad attitude, what happens? That can spread as well. So show appreciation, have that gratitude there. Monthly shout outs, another great way. And we talked about, retreats, those quarterly or even offsites, even if it's just to lunch together, sitting around the table, talking, and create boundaries there, like no work. We're not talking about work. Create some questions. Where's your favorite vacation spot? Where's your next vacation spot? What are things that you like to do? All right. What's the name of your oldest kid? Get to really know each other in those retreats and in those offsites. Take a break from work. I like to do it after a heavy month, after a big project that we just completed. Treat the team. It goes, they look forward to it. They really do. And when you're looking forward to the recognition, when you're looking forward to that camaraderie, the work seems not as daunting and not as hard when you're in the thick of it. So I'm going to challenge you. Implement one of the strategies that we talked about. Spot burnout early and create a culture that values balance, and your Agile team will stay away from burnout. I believe in you. Go be great. Talk to everyone later. Bye-bye. If you like what you're hearing, do us a favor. Click on that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up or leave a comment. That lets us know that what we are putting out benefits you. If you want additional information or resources or learn how to work with me, head on over to thejohnespinosa.com, because when we become better versions of ourselves, it helps us get others to where they're going. Go be great. Talk to everyone later.